Another important qualification for the student is Shraddha, wholehearted sincerity, complete and total interest in what you are doing, true zeal.
I think I finished last week on chapter 4 of the Bhagavad Gita, and it is called the Yoga of Action and Renunciation. So, wow, this is a big one, renunciation. What does that mean? Do you have to renounce everything you have? What is it all about? Because here Arjuna, as a student, he's very troubled, and he keeps asking Lord Krishna, representing a higher self, but, why are you asking me to fight? Isn't it better to do something else? Why are you asking me to do this? Isn't it better? He still has a lot of doubts. And in our life, when we come through a crossroads, we have a lot of doubts. We have a lot of doubts. And we have to hear the same thing again and again and again until we get it. Our consciousness understands it. And the whole Gita is like that. You will find many of what Lord Krishna says repeated again and again, because it is very hard for the human mind. It is really hard for the human mind to see beyond the material dimension that we're stuck in. Constantly stuck in the material dimension. We need to move forward. So this is how he tells us how a person of renunciation looks like. We'll continue at 20. Because he has let go attachment to the fruits of his actions, he is ever content and has no dependencies. Though he appears to be doing things, karma, actually he's not the doer. Because he does not want anything for himself, and because he has control of his mind and ego, and because he does not consider possessions as his own, he is completely pure despite the actions of his body and mind, which move according to the forces of nature. Because he is content with what comes of its own accord, and because he envies no one, and because he has gone beyond the pairs of opposites, and maintains his equanimity in success and failure, even though it appears that he is doing the things, he is not bound by his actions. When you let go all attachments and experience liberation, your mind becomes absorbed in truth. Then everything you do becomes a sacrifice, and all your karmas melt away. Wow, this is a lot to expect from anyone, isn't it? And here he's saying, 20, when you really let go of the fruits of your actions, and this is so big, guys, this is the biggest truth you will ever hear in your life. When we are attached to the results of our actions, whatever they may be, I did this for you because I love you. You need to do this back for me. The moment you expect something back for you, you're in trouble. Because if you don't get it back, what happens to you? Your mind gets disturbed. Your mind gets totally disturbed. Here, Sri Krishna is just being totally honest. Because you expected, you get disappointed. Then you blame everybody else. Maybe they are to blame. But such is life. You're going to be disappointed. So you need to, now, how do you get out of this? Because if you get disappointed, you go through a phase of depression. You will go into depression. I've done so much for the world hasn't done anything for me. So you say, forget all this. Why me, Nalanie? Why did my partner die? And why did this happen? Why not? You really have to let go of everything. Happens to everyone. And this is what, when you understand, nobody's picking on you. You start to let everything go. You know what? This is life. You build up on your inner strength. Then you know nothing is yours. And then you do everything because you love to. That way, if people don't appreciate you, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. If life does, you don't need people to appreciate you. You become very independent. Isn't that a great feeling? Isn't it a great feeling not to be worried? People, Of course, it's nice to have everybody like you, but some people don't like you. What can you do? You're liberated. They can't attach their anger to you. Once you're liberated, nobody can attach their badness onto you. Most of you are very spiritual people, and you hear a lot that negative energy sticks to you, and it does. Why? It's very simple to explain this. It's scientific. We're made up of atoms. We're made up of atoms, and you are more sensitive, and yogis tend to be more sensitives. You absorb everything, good and bad. This is why all the teachings say, in your early days, be careful who you mix with. You know, live with people who live the truth, who speak good, who have a clean mind. Because there are many people you meet that can speak beautiful words, but their minds are corrupt. Be careful of this. Every religion, every tradition tells us this. Why? Because in the beginning of this spiritual practice, our vibration grows. And if you're not strong, you can receive all the negative. And then you'll say, I'm so spiritual. I know all these truths. Why am I depressed? Why is this happening to me? It's because you're not strong enough yet. That's why I tell all my students, don't rush. Kundalini, raise your Kundalini, do all these kind of crazy things, work with the chakras. Yes, chakras are good. It's good for you to know. Work on your own chakras. I'll give you all the knowledge. I have videos on YouTube. Happy to give you whatever you need. But please, yes, get help if you are in trouble. But the best healing, and please understand, it does take time. But it can be a moment of realization when you're ready. And I don't know when that moment of realization is going to happen for anyone, but it will just come. And it's all those aha moments you get as soon as you start letting things go. Oh, I love you so much, or you don't love me. Oh, you don't love me? Big deal. You know, it's kind of like what you said when somebody harmed you today. You said, you know what? I just blocked the person. Big deal. I've done my work. I tried to be good. They don't want my goodness. Bye-bye. No big deal. That's renunciation need to have. It's not that it's just like you're not going to waste your life on this. Do you understand what renunciation is? It doesn't mean you don't love people. You just understand the world is a bit mixed up, isn't it? You're going to have all kinds of minds in this world. Don't get so involved in the crazy. Renounce the crazy. See it. Notice it. Know it's there. And then decide how you want to react to that crazy. You got it? This is wisdom. So that's what he's saying that. And he said, although you're controlled by nature, right? Nature, the gunas, like if you get sick, etc., you're controlled by nature. Sometimes the weather is bad, you catch a cold, right? These things happen. Don't let them take over your mind. You see, this is all mind stuff. But if your mind stuff, now what causes, you see, he says here, because he has control of his mind and his ego. Isn't that interesting? The ego, I have to be right, I have to be right, everybody has to listen. No, you're going to be in trouble for the rest of your life. So, and you have control of your mind. And you have control of your ego, and you can see it, Many times when students start with the yoga practice, they get what I call ego sickness. I haven't mentioned this for a long time. When I used to start in the early days, and I took up the Raj Yoga studies, and I remember I used to go home and lecture my husband thinking I knew it all. And after speaking to him, I could see the disdain on his face, and I'd be feeling a bit like I wanted to throw up, nauseous. And I learned by my own body that every time I was feeling nauseous or I was feeling the sickness, is I was into my ego. I was the better one. I was the one who knew more. And I used to get this feeling. So I named it ego sickness. So many years when my students came to me and say, Nalanie, I've been practicing yoga, but I'm feeling a bit sick. Oh, great. This is ego sickness. You're purging your ego. You're recognizing your ego, don't be afraid of it. As you get stronger, it disappears. That's why I don't talk about it so often, as I haven't had ego sickness for a long time, thank God. It's horrible, the feeling, but you have to go through it. You have to purge it and let it out. In relationships, forget about the spiritual practice. This happens too. For example, when even in a loss of a loved one, for example, I remembered after my husband died and I moved from the apartment we were renting into another. Every time we drove past where we used to live, I'd get sick. Physically, I would tell my son, I remember, I feel like throwing up. And I know what it is. I'm not sick. I'm absolutely fine. I am feeling the loss of my husband. I am you see the I? It's not a bad ego, but it's still ego. So I am missing him, so I'm going to suffer this. And it's okay. But don't ask me to go for dinner now because I'm not going to eat. I've lost my appetite, So, but I don't worry about it because I know I'm not the doer. This is what happens to you. Are you trying to get my understanding of what renunciation really is? I'm not the doer. I can't change the things, but I can accept that my body, because it's with the goodness, is going to react like this. I'm going to cry, but I'm not going to make a big song and dance about it, because the more I do that, the more I suffer, and the more I suffer, the more my kids suffer. Do I really want that? The more my kids suffer, the yoga center would have been closed down. Do you see? It just is. Then you see that the spiraling of the mind, because I am suffering, everybody should suffer with me. No, suffering is normal. I should teach people how to have hope. That is the opposite action, right? And here Lord Krishna is telling him, now you know that nothing belongs to you. Everything's on loan. Everything's on loan. Is everything on loan, people?
Yes.
Yeah. People on Zoom, everything on loan? Yes, it is. It doesn't belong to you. When you die, you leave it all behind. And that was my practice for years. Netty, not this, not that. Nothing is mine. Everything's on loan. So I'm going to say thank you for everything in loan. Somebody gives you something, lends something to you, what do? You look after it really well, don't you? Because if somebody lends me a book, I'm almost scared to put tails on the page. I'll use bookmarks because it's not my book. I won't write on it. You see? So because it's on loan. So everything in my life is on loan. Everything in your life is on loan. Everything in everybody's life is on loan. And the more you see that, the more gratitude you have. Because if you look at our lives, my God, we're really so blessed. We're really so blessed. We're so blessed. Oh my God, we're so lucky. So this is what you start to let go of all these. You start to see the truth, because it's a truth. And then your actions will be more dedicated naturally to service of the world, service to yourself, because if you are not good to yourself, you cannot be good to the world. So if you're exhausted, you can be good to no one. And then you become content. And you don't envy anyone. There's nothing to envy. There's nothing to, because you become content. You realize how blessed you are. You become more and more content. And Sri Patanjali says, by the practice of contentment, what happens? Supreme joy is gained. Supreme joy is gained. Yeah, you become content because you see the truth. This is the truth. This is the truth. Got so caught up with everybody's energies, I forgot the truth. And then you become content, and then you realize life will always have its opposites. There will be good days, there will be bad days, there will be sadness, there will be joy. It is life, just the way it is. And when you know that with all your heart and soul, then the attachments leave you, the fear leaves you. Of course, when you hear somebody is not well, you will feel it because you're human. It's not that you won't, but it won't attach to you and make you sick, because that's no use to anyone. You will find solutions. You will give hope, right? And this is the joy in the work, and expect nothing in return. And actually, this is a sacrifice. And it says then everything you do becomes a sacrifice. And I try to understand sacrifice because, in a Western language, it doesn't sound very like, oh, do I have to sacrifice all my life? And the way I studied sacrifice was simply, when I had my own children, sacrifice your night's sleep when they're sick to look after them, and never felt like sacrifice. You do it out of love, Yeah, you may be grumpy the next day, but you're human, and that's the gunas, right? Because you didn't sleep enough, but you know that. But there's no maliciousness in it, right? But it's a happy sacrifice, and that's how I studied sacrifice. And you cook a good meal for someone, doesn't matter if they like your food or not, and when they say it's delicious, wow, you sacrificed your time, but you didn't expect people to say it's delicious, and that's an extra bonus, right? So giving your time, myself, sacrificing my sleep for meditation in the morning, not a sacrifice now. I don't feel it as a sacrifice. In the beginning, it was hard to get up every day so early and meditate. Now it's a joy. Do you see? So sacrifice is not a bad thing. Sacrificing your fear, dropping your fear and having faith is a good thing, right? Dropping your mind with all the dark thoughts, sacrificing those dark thoughts for light thoughts. And then I understood sacrifice. But for many years I pondered on the word sacrifice. And it's not really sacrifice, it's joy. That's what he's saying. When you sacrifice like this, you become free because you don't expect anything, but you get everything. And he says, this is the truth, the 24. The offering itself is Brahman. The oblation is Brahman, which is offered by Brahman into the fire of Brahman. The one who sees nothing but Brahman in all that he does certainly realizes Brahman. Now, Brahman is another word for God. And he is saying, everything is divine. In the Hindu tradition, they do the Havan, and they throw things into the fire, and I think now it's adopted by the Western world. They throw all their negative thoughts into the fire, like a campfire, right? Which you used to have. And they say the 100 names of gods. So he's saying everything is divine. Brahman is in everything. It's in the fire. It's in the things you throw in the fire. It's in you. Everything is consciousness. Everything is made out of atoms, scientifically. Everything is made out of atoms. So everything is made out of Brahma. And once you realize this, you have understood that God is everywhere. You have understood God is everywhere. Or the highest creative energy is everywhere. So if it's everywhere, where is the only place you can really get to know it? You tell me. Yes? Because if you don't know yourself, you can't know it in anyone. So simply, that's why I say sometimes spiritual knowledge, keep it simple. So much complication makes you really confused. As Bible, love thy neighbor as thyself. How easy is that? Be still and know that I am God. Who's God? I am that I am. So who's patrolling this? So we continue. So are you getting the meaning of sacrifice? It's not a bad thing. So here he continues to talk about the sacrifices. 25. Some yogis make sacrifices to the gods, angels, while others offer their very selves as sacrifice to Brahman, the absolute God. So he's saying some people pray to gods, and they offer them things like you may do a puja, or you might pray to the gods and say, today I'm going to fast for you, as you do in Lent, or we do on Mondays, and Thursdays in the Indian tradition, we'd fast on a Monday and Thursday. Mondays for Lord Shiva, Thursdays if you want a good husband. And that's what my mother always used to say. You fast on a Thursday, you get a good husband. The gods will answer you. As an offering, some restrain their senses, such as hearing, seeing, tasting, while others sacrifice sense objects, such as sounds, etc., that otherwise would be enjoyed by the senses. Now here, he's talking a little bit about which limb of yoga. Can you guess?
Pratyahara.
Correct. Thank you, Maxine. Thank you. Pratyahara, self-control. So, for example, that delicious chips that I had today, I had self-control. I could eat the whole packet, but no. Why? I'm sacrificing eating the whole packet, but who am I sacrificing for? Myself. If I eat the whole packet, I feel a bit sick, right? So do you see, it's actually quite funny when you study sacrifice and you study pratyahara. It's really sense control. If you overdo, you're not going to feel good. So leave it for tomorrow. You don't have to do it all now. You see, it's not a bad thing. So that's all he's saying. Some people sacrifice their sense of taste. Some people will say, okay, I'm not going to watch movies for a week. I'm just going to give that up to just go within. He's talking about different ways of pratyahara you can do in your life, sense control, to get some willpower, to create willpower in yourself. Because the problem for most human beings is willpower. We all want to do it. We all want to go there. We all want to meditate. We all want to be good people. But the willpower is very weak. So when you do these sacrifices and these plannings, you build up your willpower. You literally build up your willpower. Okay? That's all he's saying here. Motivated by wisdom, still others offer their senses and vital energy, prana, as a sacrifice in the form of self-restraint. This is where you get the Catholic priests and some of the monks about celibacy, self-restraint. Okay? Some offer their wealth as a sacrifice, or they give their money. If you're wealthy, it's great, right? Just give it. And it says, or their suffering, or the fruits of their yoga practices. So suffering I really understood, and I thank my Catholic background for this. At Lent, we were in school, and as a young girl, I went to a Catholic school, and everybody had to give up something for Lent. And every time I gave up something for Lent, if I did it for me, if I said I'm not going to have chocolate for a month, 40 days for me, the first year I did it, I broke down. I couldn't do it. The second year, what I did was, I said, I'm going to do 40 days without chocolate, but I am offering this sacrifice for the special needs children that I used to go and work with on a Saturday with my nuns, so that they find nice homes. Guess what? Temptation, couldn't eat it because those kids need it, I promised. Do you see? So this is kind of like a little sacrifice you're offering for the betterment of the world. We sit together in alms to pray for the world. We sacrifice our time to become better people for the world. So sacrifice for me is a really nice word. It's not a bad word. So here it says that. And your yoga practices. If you do your yoga practices, you can offer it. Many times if I do a class and somebody's lost someone, I'll dedicate a class to them. You've heard me say this before. I think today I would like, or maybe it's a hatha class, I don't know. There's so many classes. I go, today I'd like to dedicate this class to the soul of this person or to that family, because I'm feeling, I'm not doing it, I'm sending energy. My body's just sending energy because I got the message. You need to do this because this person who's gone needs more light. So I just do it. That's it. I don't know what the outcome's going to be, or even if there's going to be an outcome, but it doesn't matter. I get the message and I do it. And many of you do this, right? When it's for your kids, your family, don't you do it automatically? You just do that. Others who tend toward austerity and extreme vows offer the fruits and knowledge of sacred study as their sacrifice. I'm going to study, and that is my way of growing. Among those primarily interested in control of the life force by restraining the flow of the breathing pranayama, some offer the out-breath as a sacrifice to the in-breath and the in-breath to the out-breath. He's talking about pranayama. While you're doing pranayama, you're sacrificing the out-breath so you get the in-breath. How easy does he make sacrifice in the practice of pranayama? And this is what he's saying here. That kind of practice is also very good for you. And this helps your life force by the practice of, he says, the life force. So you're practicing pranayama for your life force to get stronger. 30. Others who restrict their diets offer the additional vitality of such austerity as their sacrifice. You've all heard about this. We talked about Lent. People do 60 days, 40 days, diets, etc., etc. All these yogis are purified by yajna, which ultimately destroys their sins. Now, for me, the word sins, I look at as obstacles. I don't see the word as sin, I see it as an obstacle. So let's say, if you're an alcoholic, what is your obstacle? Alcohol. So by you not having the alcohol, you're sacrificing that joy, right? But in the end, what's really happening for you? You're fixing yourself, right? So this is why in Alcoholics Anonymous, the first of the 12 steps, they say, no, there is a higher power, and that higher power is within you, and you can do this, right? I don't know if I phrased it right. Somebody can correct me, but basically that's what it is. It's telling us that there is a higher power, and you can do it. So this is talking about addictions here. This world and the world to come are for those who sacrifice. Those who partake of what remains of the sacrifice go to Brahman, go to God. So you serve everyone and you take whatever is left over. That shows the highest sacrifice. In many ways do people sacrifice of themselves and reach God. Each sacrifice is according to their karma. Understand this well and you will be free. In other words, do not judge anybody. Because their sacrifice, it's too small. You don't know. We will never know because we cannot be in their body. So even a tiny step can be a huge sacrifice. So this is where judgment does get in the way, especially for people who counsel. You cannot judge. You have to maintain neutrality, and people will fall and they will make mistakes, but bless them, for they will learn from their mistakes. And if you judge them for their mistakes, they will continue doing it. And so this is, understand this. Each person has to work according to their karma. We don't know what their karma is. Sometimes I can see the karma is they're going to be addicts for the rest of their lives. All I can do is make their painful moments better. Simply, I can't do more. And that's enough. That's enough. That's all we can do with everybody we meet. We do this moment the best we can. And it's enough. You don't have to, I should do this, I should do that. And this is what kills most relationships. This overworking, overthinking. I have to help you. I have to fix you. We don't know what their karma is. Maybe this life they're not meant to be fixed. Some people just can't. And I see that. Giving knowledge is even better than giving wealth, Arjuna, because all other sacrificial actions lead to the attainment of knowledge. Here he's saying is giving knowledge, spiritual knowledge, is the best thing you can give to people. It's kind of like the saying, right? Don't buy the fish, teach them how to fish. Isn't that the saying? Did I get it right? Yes. Yeah, something similar like that, right? If you give a person spiritual knowledge, it is far greater than feeding them food. And this I'm seeing more and more in my life. And I remember when, after my husband died, and I wanted to kind of like, I really didn't want to do anything anymore. I just thought I'd live a very quiet life and help my daughter bring up her special needs child. And somebody said, and I said, maybe I'll go to Nepal and do charity, live in Nepal and do some charity work there. I was really quite serious. And this French woman said to me, she said, no, you're not doing that. And I said, why not? And she said, because I read a book about a French nun who spent her whole life in Africa feeding the poor. And she said they were the happiest kids in the world. They were the best years in her life. They didn't mind being poor. And then when she got old and came back to France, and she saw the sickness and people who had wealth and who had everything, and yet they were so sick and they were so miserable. She said and wrote in that book, I wish I had spent that time giving my own country my spiritual knowledge. they needed it more. And that woman really affected me. No, Nepal. Do you know, carry on. You know, in your life many times, and people here get messages, okay? You want to do something. You really want to do it. And they guide you how to do it. So you have to see God in everyone to know. That I felt was a personal message to me. It was a personal message because I was really serious about becoming a monk, really seriously wanting to shave my head, give everything up, serious about this. And it was almost like, no. Every person said, not now. Mataji said, not now. This woman said, no. So you get guided in your path, whichever your path is, if you listen to that voice. But you know, many people, I hear they say, the voice says, time to make a change, but they don't listen. They're too scared. They're too scared to rise to be who they are. And the voice comes such a lot, that you have to listen. So, if you seek enlightenment from those who have realized the truth, prostrate before them, question them, and serve them. Only then are you open to receive their teachings of sacred knowledge.
This sloka shows the qualities of a student. Lord Krishna says, become enlightened by surrendering. By prostrating, you annihilate your ego. Also by questioning and service, only then will the wise instruct you in that knowledge. They won't until then. That means you prove yourself to be a qualified seeker by humbling yourself and by asking. To get such knowledge, you can't just simply say, could you give me that? In this case, literally cry and beg for it. That's what prostrating means.
Here, what he's saying is, when you meet somebody who has the knowledge, in our Hindu custom, what we do is when we meet a master or anything, we always touch their feet. Okay, it's just our custom. What it really means is, be humble. Be humble. You know, if you really want knowledge, be humble. Know that you know nothing and start from the beginning. Because if you go to a teacher and you go, I want to learn this, but I know this and I know this and I know this and I know this and know this, you will not receive any knowledge because you're only knowing what you know. Many times people have done that to me and I go, well, I'm probably not the teacher for you, as you know it all already. You need to find somebody with much more knowledge than I have. So at that point, then they get very embarrassed because it's the truth. So if you come to me, you're asking me, but you're not hearing a word, you know it, you don't need me, you know. So this is all he said, you need to be humble. The next one. When you realize this truth, Arjuna, you will never be confused again, and you will clearly see that all things in creation are part of you and part of me. We're all connected, whether we like it or not. And you know, the science has shown that a butterfly fluttering its wings in Honolulu will be felt in Los Angeles. Talking science, whether we like it or not, we're connected. 36. Even if you had been the worst sinner on the raft of this realization, you will certainly pass over the ocean of sin and evil. So don't worry, even if you were the worst sinner, there's hope. You can get through it. And then 37 is the one I often quote in my talks. Just like a roaring fire reduces its fuel to ashes, the fire of your realization of the truth reduces all your karmas to ashes. See, we all come with karma, but when you realize the truth, it's like a fire burning all your karma, just gone. It's gone because you don't need it anymore. You know it now. Now that you know, you don't need those lessons anymore. So it burns those karmas because now you know that you know that you know. And then it burns. Okay? I love that one. Those two are full of hope. Undoubtedly, there is nothing in the world that so purifies you as awakening of true knowing. Whoever rises up through yoga in time realizes this truth in his or her own heart. So there is nothing that purifies one more than true knowing. What is the truth? Not my truth, your truth, the truth. Truth is one, paths are many. So, anyone who has sincere belief and devotion and takes control of his senses will rise to this wisdom, which in turn leads to realization of profound peace. Here he's saying you have to have belief and devotion, but not blind faith. Because through your yogic practices, the sacrifices, the things you learn, the pratyahara, the giving, you start to create karma, you start to learn. And when you start to learn with it, then you develop belief and devotion, and then automatically the wisdom comes to you. Automatically the wisdom will come to you when you realize the truth, and then you will be in peace. 40. Because of ignorance, some people have no sincere belief and are constantly skeptical. They are ruined. A mind like that is unhappy in the present and the future. When you have ignorance, in Sri Patanjali talks about the Kleshas, the 5 Kleshas that lead us to suffering or karma: ignorance, egoism, attachment, aversion, and clinging to bodily life. So he said, because of ignorance, people have no belief. They go, this is all there is. So they're constantly fighting with the universe, constantly, trying to get more. Hunger is never satisfied because they want more and more and more. And so they will always be unhappy. 41. If you dedicate all your actions so your work becomes karma yoga, all remaining doubts will be destroyed in the fire of your waking. There he's repeating again. If you just do your work, expect nothing in return, renounce all the results, do the best, let God do the rest, all the remaining doubts will disappear. Why will they disappear? Because you get proof. Your own belief system will give you the proof that this works. You will know. At this point, all bondage falls away and you remain poised in the true self. Then all your bondage, all the things that strangle you, as the Upanishads say, all the desires that strangle the heart are loosened. You find all the desire, I have to have, if I don't have this, I won't be happy. What does this happen to me? When all those go, it's like a freedom. Start to feel less afraid, more free. 42. With a keen blade of knowledge, sever any doubts due to ignorance, that you may still hold about Atman, the true self, which abides in your own heart, and thus, well established in yoga, stand up, Arjuna. So with a keen blade of knowledge, if you have doubts, start to learn. Get as much knowledge as you can. When you get more knowledge and you work on yourself, the knowledge will rise in you because it's there. It's within all of us. And then you've got to be keen. I love the word keen. You've got to be excited. You've got to be keen. And get the knowledge. Not everybody likes to read books. So you can learn it from people who are, who have gone through the path, who know. Ask. He says ask questions. You must ask questions if you have doubts. The worst kind of student, spiritual student, if you have a doubt and pretend you don't, because I may appear bad. No, you can say anything you want. If you have a doubt, clear it up. Otherwise, you will forever be in this gray place, neither here, neither there. And if you don't trust one teacher, go to another teacher, till you find one that works for you. There's so many good people in this world. Really, they are. So many, many, many good people. So, including yourselves. So, I think it's always best to, like when you study like this, and I did for so many years, you'll see, oh, my book is marked. And that's why it's so old, it's yellow. It's old, the cover's broken. But I've been over these slokas again and again and again for nearly 30 years, more maybe, and until I understand it. And if I don't understand it, I will take this book away, I'll look at Patanjali, I'll look at the New Testament, I'll look at some Buddhist works, or I'll look at the Tao teaching, or I'll look at other scriptures, or I'll look at science. I'll look at some science books and see where I see the connection. And I love philosophers. I will go on YouTube. These days I love some of the Spinoza is one of my favorite philosopher. Poor guy, he was rejected by the Jewish community. But I love reading his work because it makes so much sense to me. But that's for me. Is it for you? Do you know what I'm saying? You look for what works for you. What works for you? And I get very excited because I can compare his words with this one and that one. And then I read Emerson, I can compare his words. And then I read Ram Dass and I can compare his words. Or Paramahansa Yogananda and Ramakrishna, who I adore. We have a photo. Gigi was asking me about his photo today. It was a photo from his book. The photograph was taken. Could you mind bringing it so I can show this people in Zoom? In around the 1890s. And it was in a very old edition of his book, which my husband's uncle had bought. So it was a book that came from the 1920s. And this photograph came then. The book was nearly tearing apart. So I took the photo and made it into a poster so I'll never forget. And I'll show it to you why I love this photo, which is so old. Can you all see at the back? Now, this is Ramakrishna, who's known to be the great saint. There's a black and white photos in those days. Can you see the halo around him? And there's black and white photo. And then this is Ramananda, I think it's Ramananda, one of his disciples who adored him. And if you can see, on top of his head is like the energy is going into his head, like he's receiving the knowledge, right? And when I saw this photo, because those days they didn't have trick photography, and I read this book when I came here, I found it in 1977 in my husband's uncle's library, and I read it then. And I just looked at that photo and I go, whoa, you know? And if you read Ramakrishna, he was considered crazy for a long time. Because when he studied, for example, the Bible, he would see Lord Jesus everywhere and people thought he was crazy. Then he'd study the Ramayana and he'd see the monkey god everywhere and behave like a monkey. Then when he studied about Lord Rama, incarnation of God, he would act like Lord Rama and become a king. What happened was he was so in touch with the consciousness that really, as he thought, he became correct. So, wow, you go, that's why he got all this. He was so keen. He loved them so much. And he wanted to know if all the paths were the same. I think he's one of the first people who actually said, truth is one, paths are many. So, this is the experience I've had. And you know, when you see things like that, it gives you hope. It makes you see that we are living on a very superficial dimension, and there's a far greater dimension that we will never understand, maybe not with this mind, but we sense. And all of you all over the world that I know, all of you there and on the internet and everybody here, you know what I'm talking about because you know. But doubts come in the way constantly because of the world. So spend time with yourself, trust yourself more, because maybe what I have to say to you is not what you need, but trust yourself. You look at these great books, read what you need to read. Don't go all over the place, but look for the golden simple truths. You know, love your neighbor as yourself. I am that I am. Be still and know that I'm God. Be good, do good. They're simple truths. Why? They keep the mind very simple. And in simplicity, there's less chat. So first, go for the knowledge, study a lot. Then after a point, stop. and make it really simple. Always be around company that elevates you. Do not be afraid to say no. When your energy field is destroyed, because if you don't look after yourself, who will look after you? And if your energy field is destroyed, 2 lives are destroyed instead of 1. Do you see? So an action may look bad to the world. That's why you can never can judge anybody. Oh, she left her husband, or he left his wife. But maybe that's the best action they had to take. We don't know. Oh, she's a fool, she stayed. But that's the best action she could take. We don't know. And this is why you need to know yourself really well, all right? Know yourself, know your moods, know your character, know your personality, know where you're sensitive, know when people trigger you, and say, why am I allowing them to trigger me? So you have to know yourself, when to walk away and when to stay. Do you see? Nobody can tell you that. Nobody. Many times people say, what should I do? I say, no, that's not my job. I can't tell you what to do. I can tell you what your personality is like, but sometimes you don't want to hear it. You're also very bossy, You're also very sensitive, You have to look at that. You have to question that before you blame anybody else. Are you always wanting to control? Notice. If all those are no's, then maybe you should leave. But if all those are yes, maybe you should stay. That's why study your personality. Know yourself, then you know how to act. And that makes you feel really connected to the divine. So this is what this whole chapter is about. Renunciation and karma yoga. Now you understand. Renunciation is not a scary word. It's just a very beautiful word. Renounce all your fear. Renounce all your bad habits. Renounce all your greed, and you will be happy. How simple is that?